So, what is it that allows a person to survive something that seems, well, unsurvivable? When everything you have, everything you are is stripped away, what's actually left? This isn't just some late-night philosophical question. It's a very real question of life and death. Welcome to MindSwitch Books. Today, we are diving deep into one of the most powerful books ever written, Viktor Frankl's masterpiece, Man's Search for Meaning. We're going to follow his journey through the absolute horrors of Auschwitz, we'll uncover the psychological stages of survival, and most importantly, we're going to reveal the one single freedom that can never ever be taken away, a discovery that could totally change how you face every single challenge in your own life.
You see this quote, "This single idea from the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche is pretty much the beating heart of this entire book." Now, Viktor Frankl, who was already a successful psychiatrist back in Vienna, he understood this idea intellectually. He got it, in his head. But he was about to experience its profound truth in the most brutal, unimaginable laboratory on Earth, a Nazi concentration camp.
So Frankl's story starts by breaking down what he saw as three psychological phases that every prisoner went through. And the very first phase, the period right after they arrived, was defined by one overwhelming, all-consuming emotion: shock. And the craziest part? That shock began before they even stepped foot inside the camp.
Just try to imagine it. For days and nights, 1,500 people are crammed into these train cars, 80 people to a single coach, lying on top of whatever was left of their baggage. They have no idea where they're going. They're hoping, praying it's a munitions factory, somewhere they'll just be put to work. And then someone yells out, "There's a sign, Auschwitz!" And in that instant, every single heart on that train just stops. Because that name meant everything horrible. It meant gas chambers, crematoriums, massacres.
And this is where Frankl points out a fascinating quirk of the human mind. Even when you're staring horror right in the face, prisoners clung to what he called a delusion of reprieve. It's this almost irrational belief that maybe, just maybe, you'll be spared at the last second. When the train doors finally groaned open, they saw other prisoners in striped uniforms who surprisingly looked pretty well fed. They were even cracking jokes. And for a split second, Frankl's own optimism grabbed onto that. He thought, hey, maybe it won't be so bad after all.
Well, that delusion was shattered almost immediately. All the new arrivals were forced to line up and shuffle past a high-ranking SS officer. And with this lazy, almost bored motion, he just pointed his finger. Left or right? Nobody knew what this meant, this casual little gesture, but they found out that night. It was the first selection, the first judgment on whether you would live or die. A point to the right meant you were fit for work. A point to the left meant the gas chamber, and about 90% of the people on Frankl's train were sent to the left. Their fate was sealed within hours of arrival.
So for the 10% who were sent to the right, for the survivors, a totally different kind of death began. This was the systematic, cold, and calculated process of stripping away their identity, their past, their humanity, until there was absolutely nothing left but their naked existence.
And they took everything. Literally everything. All possessions were tossed onto piles. Watches, jewelry, wedding rings, family heirlooms, gone. Then their heads, their entire bodies were shaved. Their clothes were taken away. And finally, even their names were erased, replaced by a number that was tattooed right onto their skin. Viktor Frankl, the respected doctor, was gone. He was now just prisoner 119,004. They had absolutely nothing left. But Frankl did try to save one last thing. One tiny material link to the life he used to have. Hidden away in the pocket of his coat was a manuscript. It was a scientific book. It was his entire life's work. He spotted a long-term prisoner, a guard, and he ran up to him, pleading, "Look, I have to keep this. It contains my life's work. You understand that, right?" The prisoner's face just twisted up into this mocking, ugly grin, and he just bellowed that one single word back at him. And in that moment, Frankl said he saw the plain, brutal truth. He realized what he had to do. In his own words, it was the moment he struck out his whole former life. It was all gone.
Now, after that initial shock finally wore off, the prisoners moved into a second phase: apathy. It was like an emotional death, a necessary shell they built around themselves to survive. But it was right here, in this pit of despair, that Frankl made his most profound observation. He noticed that not everybody reacted the same way. By the way, if you're getting value from this journey into Frankl's world, it would be amazing if you could take a second to like this explainer and maybe share it with someone you think needs to hear this message.
And this really gets to the core question of the entire book, doesn't it? When you are stripped of absolutely everything on the outside, What's really left on the inside? What defines you when all the external definitions, your job, your possessions, your name, are just gone? Frankl saw two very different paths emerge. The vast majority of prisoners, and you can totally understand why, just became playthings of circumstance. Apathy, irritability, they just took over. They were focused on one thing and one thing only: survival. But then, there were a few others, a heroic few, who proved that another response was possible. These were the people who walked through the barracks comforting others. They were the ones who would give away their last tiny piece of bread.
And here it is. This is the single most important insight in the entire book. Frankl argues that the horrors of the camp actually prove that a human being does have a choice of action. The kind of person a prisoner became wasn't just a product of the camp. It was the result of an inner decision. This spiritual freedom, this power to choose your own attitude, that can't be taken away from you. It is the very last of the human freedoms. So, this incredible insight didn't just stay in the camp. It became the foundation for Frankl's whole school of psychotherapy, which he called logotherapy. He basically argued that the main driving force in all of us isn't the search for pleasure, like Freud said, or the search for power, like Adler said. No, it's our search for meaning. It's the discovery and the pursuit of what we personally find meaningful.
Okay, so how do we actually find this meaning? Well, Frankl lays out three main paths. The first one is through work, by creating something or doing a significant deed, having a mission. The second is through love, by experiencing something or encountering someone deeply. And the third path, and this one is the most profound, especially in tough situations, is through the attitude we choose to take towards suffering that we simply cannot avoid. To show just how powerful love can be, Frankl tells this story of being on a forced march in the freezing cold. His body was giving out, he was at his limit, but his mind escaped. It clung to the image of his wife. He had no idea if she was even still alive, but in his mind he talked to her, he saw her smile, he felt her presence right there with him. And it was in that moment that he truly understood life's greatest secret, that the salvation of humanity is through love and in love. Even when you have nothing left in the world, you can still find bliss just by contemplating the image of someone you love. And that brings us to the final, and maybe the most challenging part of Frankl's entire philosophy. It's this idea that it's not just about getting through suffering, but about finding actual meaning in the suffering itself. Think about it. In that brutal daily fight just to stay alive, a person can completely forget their own human dignity and just become like an animal. Or they can face what's happening to them and choose to remain brave and dignified and unselfish. And right there, in that choice, is the chance to achieve something profound. It's what decides whether or not you are worthy of your sufferings. Now, it's so important to get this next part right. Frankl is not saying that you need to suffer to find meaning. Not at all. His point is much more subtle. It's that since suffering is just a part of life, you can't escape it, just like you can't escape fate or death, then for life to have meaning, there must also be a potential for meaning in that suffering. The way we pick up our own cross, the way we carry our burdens, that gives us a chance, even in the worst imaginable circumstances, to add a deeper meaning to our lives. And so we'll end with this quote from Dostoevsky, one that Frankl said came to his mind over and over again in the camps. It just completely reframes our relationship with hardship, doesn't it? It tells us it's not about trying to avoid challenges, it's about how we choose to meet them. It forces us to stop asking, why is this happening to me, and instead start asking, how can I respond in a way that is worthy of this challenge? And that is the ultimate measure of our inner freedom. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey into man's search for meaning. If this exploration really resonated with you, please subscribe to MindSwitch Books for more deep dives into life-changing books. And to really experience Viktor Frankl's full, transformative story for yourself, you can click the link in the description to get a copy of the book. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.